Please help me, like this video and subscribe. I really appreciate your help. Children of same-sex parents, how do you live? I have 2 moms and a stepmom, so I'm both a child of gay parents and a child of divorce. When people ask me this question, I usually reply, well, what is it like to have a dad? It's all I know. My family has plenty of issues, so I definitely feel like I missed out on some things, but I don't think being raised by all women was all that relevant. The biggest problem growing up with gay parents was other kids' parents. A lot of kids weren't allowed to hang out with me, and the parents who would have me around would ask strange intrusive questions or make comments. I've never thought of the other kids' parents were the problem side of this. You should spread this info. Somehow, I think that most of the mean things that have ever been said to me in my entire life have been from other people's judgmental parents while I was a child, and it's the worst. B/C you can't really stand up for yourself without talking back at that age. So that makes sense to me that parents gave you the most difficulty. I know this one guy with 2 moms, and if anyone asks where he learned something, he always said his dad taught him. His mom went to a sperm bank. The biggest problem growing up with gay parents was other kids' parents. My little brother's best childhood friend had gay parents. His mum wrote a little note for him to give my mum when he and my brother were about 4, asking if he'd be allowed to come round and play, with a subtle reference to her female partner. Essentially, she had to ask permission for them to be friends, because so many other parents got really angry when they found out after their kids had played together that she was a lesbian. This was in the 90s in one of the most tolerant and cosmopolitan cities in the world, FFS. I still remember how upset my mum was when this was explained. For me, as a 8-9-year-old, it was one of those moments where you realize the world can be really fucking shitty. My dad came out when I was 3, after over 10 years of marriage with my mother. I don't remember it, but my mother still seems bitter about it, even after 2 long-term relationships afterwards. My dad has been married to 2 men since he came out. I think him and his current husband are both wonderful. I don't care if my father is gay. Even with my mother non-stop telling me how unnatural it is, my dad is in love with a guy, and that guy loves him, so it shouldn't bother anyone. I just get on with my life and enjoy seeing my dad or dads whenever I see them. They still made a huge effort in raising me and were more caring to me than my mother ever is. However, when you have 1 real dad and 2 stepdads, Father's Day can be a very expensive time. I'm all for gay relationships and all, but I can't help but feel for your mom. I'd be fucking pissed too if my wife one day up and left, like I like women now, so FKU. I'd feel like the whole marriage was a lie and that I was sold a bill of goods. My mom realized she was a lesbian when I was about 6, so most of my life I grew up with 2 moms. To add to this, I don't have any uncles and my brother is also gay, so I grew up in a feminine household to say the least. I can't deny it made me more feminine in the traditional sense. I'm much more open with my emotions than most my age. I'm very open with compliments and like to talk deeply about things. In other words, it turned you into the kind of man that most women want. My mum is also lesbian, and as a male I definitely agree that I'm far more in tune with my emotions than the average male and find it easier to discuss them. I'm grateful for my upbringing and wouldn't have it any other way. Same here. I've noticed I'm very secure with my emotions, which is a lot more than most of my peers can say. I tend to call this confident in one's masculinity. Like egomaniacs, those with the most delicate senses of masculinity are least likely to indulge in such feminine things and more likely to perceive threats to their self-image. I feel the same way, raised by a single, straight woman. My dad left when I was 8, and she didn't really remarry until I was an adult. So for most of my life, it was just my mom. I don't know that I'd call it feminine. I feel like I'm just not ultra masculine. Overall, I consider it a good thing. I have 3 daughters now and can relate to them very well. I was actually nervous about having boys because I wasn't sure I would be a good father figure. Also, the parents not letting kids play with you happens when you're a racial minority too, so I know what it's like to have that happen as well. From another post here. I was adopted at birth by an interracial gay couple in the early 90s, when it was still extremely difficult for gay couples, especially men, to adopt. I was the only girl in my school to have 2 dads for most of my childhood, and this was in a liberal US city with a large LGBT population. I was always the unique one, always had a lot of explaining to do to my peers, and was even barred from participating in a few school events because I had 2 dads. To be quite honest, that was the only shitty part about my upbringing. My dads are awesome parents. I think the fact that they had to wait so long and go through so many hoops for a child made them especially committed parents. When I finally came along, not clingy or overprotective by any means, but just really solid, hands-on parents. Since I wasn't an oopsie baby like many kids end up being, my parents were truly prepared, emotionally and financially, to take on the extremely difficult task of parenting. Compared to my peers, and I'm probably partial, my childhood and its lingering effects on the person I'm today was phenomenal. My parents weren't ever afraid to skirt around potentially awkward issues about growing up. For instance, my first period, buying bras, first date etc. And always emphasized that I had a strong network of female relatives and close family friends to reach out to if I ever felt the need to talk about girl stuff directly with other women. I know and am still friendly acquaintances with my birth mother, and I truly feel thankful to her for giving me to my awesome parents. Though my family faced a lot of discrimination as I was growing up, both implicit and explicit, my dad's led by example and never backed down from it or let ignorant and hateful people win. They instilled in me the importance of being yourself and to never be ashamed or apologetic for who you are. I consider myself a great counterexample to all the bigots who claim that children of LGBT families are somehow scarred or have a deficiency caused by the lack of a father or mother figure. I'm happier and more successful in life than so many children of traditional families that I knew growing up. My dads are at, and I feel like the luckiest girl in the world to have found them. I'm not missing a damn thing. Birth mother here. I adopted out to a gay couple. Since it's the first and only time I'll ever experience it, I had tons of questions and worries about how that decision may affect my daughter. Your story gave me a huge boost of hope. So, basically like being gay. You don't really care, but the assholes around you make life harder. Had a friend tell me he was part Irish. I said, but neither of your moms are Irish. Then it dawned on me. Reminds me of Modern Family. Lily tells Gloria she's gay and Gloria freaks out because she's only 6 years old or something like that. Gloria tells Mitch and Cam, who confront Lily. Well, my friend X's parents are Italian, and he's Italian. My parents are gay, so I'm gay. Okay, so my mom divorced my dad to be with her lesbian lover when I was 8. My mom and her girlfriend were together for 10 years until her girlfriend passed suddenly, and now my mom is married to her wife who has never had sex with a man but had 2 kids via a sperm donor who are around my age. Her long-term partner died suddenly as well, hence why she and my mom kinda got together. If you would ask me or my brother this question in middle or high school, we would have said that while a gay home is obviously better than no home, there is something missing in gay homes that straight homes provide: the perspective of 2 genders. However, since meeting my step-siblings who never had dads, and the 5 of us having some long drawn-out discussions about all of our upbringing, we concluded that the reason we felt that way when we were younger is because it was basically like asking us how would you feel if your dad wasn't around. So of course we felt weird about that. The more we discussed and talked about how our emotional and material needs were met and all of the family friends that were in the picture throughout our childhood, we think that if we were born into a family where we only had 2 female parents, we wouldn't have ever felt that way. It was kind of a weird progression, but I think my confusion as a child was caused by people around me politicizing my situation rather than framing it in a way that is realistic, if that makes sense. Almost as though the problem for the kids is the disruption caused by divorce and remarriage, rather than anything specific to having parents of the same sex. I feel kinda the same, as I was raised by a single mother. My moms had been together 8 years before they had my sister, and I came along 3 years later. I knew that we were different than most families, but I grew up with parents who love and support me no matter what dumb shit I do, and I can appreciate that on a different level now that I'm an adult. I know plenty of people with opposite sex parents who can't say that. One of my moms, my non-biological one, transitioned to male when I was 19. and that was a very difficult adjustment to make. My mama became my dad, and I had a hard time keeping pronouns straight, and he had a hard time not being frustrated, and all around it was more of a challenge than I wanted to admit. Things did settle down, and he moved back to the West Coast, where he was from. He and my mom didn't make it, even before the transition. They hadn't gotten along in years. We all kept in touch, and we had about as good of a relationship as you can when you're 2,000 miles away. He died from a brain tumor in September. I miss him every day. I really think my upbringing made me more open-minded and loving, less judgmental, and kind. Thanks, Mom and Dad. A friend of mine has two dads. One is Pops and the other is Dad. She was taught all the things that a girl would learn from her mother by her dad, who has done an amazing job being a feminine example to my friend. Dad does her makeup every day and helps her stay fashionable and does the typical stay-at-home parent duties. She is incredibly well adjusted, very kind, absolutely charming, and very well dressed. Thank you very much for watching. In the comments under the video, write what you think about all this, and maybe we have children from same-sex families. Write about it in the comments. And also do not forget to watch our other videos. Bye.